Hello Sounders, it's Mick in this bit of Pompey Sound for a few minutes to talk about a lousy nightmare of a night. Night games, Sounders, aren't what they used to be. I've always found fratting under the lights so exciting. But for the Swansea game, things just didn't feel quite right. For a start, it wasn't a sellout. And you can always tell that, even from the walk-up to the dear old ground. And excitement was replaced by apprehension all around me after 2 home defeats. And there was the team announcement when it arrived. Brown starting alongside Bishop was interesting, understandable, but worrying. Virtually no goals between them. And then, even more into the unknown, there was, well, where was Conor Shaughnessy? No one expected Regan Poole to have recovered from the obvious injury he picked up at Blackburn. So we expected Conor. But he wasn't there. We don't know why. Conceivably, I believe they've said that he wasn't ready to play a full 90 minutes. And that's perfectly fine and understandable. It was, therefore, understandable not to give Eben Boat the gig, because he'd be joining another left-footer in Ogilvie at the heart of defence. The surprise was Jojo Diodia getting the nod over Hayden Matthews. That was a surprise. I like Matthews. He looks very competent to me. But it was also exciting, if not calming to the fans, to see a debut. There was, as I've said, in my humble opinion, a subdued atmosphere at the start of the game. And it was deepened by an absolutely awful first 10 minutes, in which we might well have gone 1 or even 2 down to a Swansea side who, it turned out, were not nearly as timid as their away results that we'd all been poring over indicated. In fact, Swansea, started with all the confidence and power and determination not to be intimidated by Fratton Park that we might have feared. And it occurred to me as we watched Jojo Diodia's understandable nervous first touches of English football, and we watched Millie Alli's inability to make a move, any move on the left. And we watched Jacob Brown's failure to fit in alongside Bishop, that in spite of the so valiant recruitment of a good many players in January, the problem of fitting them into the squad at Pompey, fitting them in instantly in order to be able to play 8 games a month is challenging. It's really difficult. January's really difficult. Not just the buying in January, but the actual settling in, getting them to play, fitting them into a league and a fixture list that's already established, and the rhythm's already there, and they've got to fit into all this, and we at the moment are making it look impossible. Things may change. They did to some degree on Tuesday night. The first half was lamentable, and we deserved nothing less than to be 2 goals down. The second half wasn't so bad. Why? Well, ALLI sadly had to come off. the team as a whole started to battle. All we ask for as Pompey fans is battle. And so the crowd lifted. And Swansea, in spite of their determination to ignore us, were effective. It did start to make them question their process. You could see it. You could see it on the field. It wasn't enough. Of course it wasn't enough. We didn't have the wit to score more than that one, resulting in a horrible journey home in the rain, full of worry and full of stress, which will increase until we get goals and win matches. Sorry, Sounders, that's the prospect. It's only right that I share my thoughts on individuals and their performances after this game, just as I usually do. And I'm usually full of praise and enthusiasm and all that stuff. This time, not so much. Nicola Schmidt is now conceding goals. Last night's weren't his fault. I'm not going to say that. But his distribution was less confident, less effective. I think he misses Ogilvie at left back when he's able to get up the line and head his clearances on from way out on that touchline. He certainly, Schmidt, along with us and others, isn't yet in tune with Caballero on the right and what that footballer seeks from him, or what he wants to deliver to Caballero. It doesn't often come to him, actually, from Schmidt. Nearly always goes with his right foot to the left. Terry Devlin met a tough opponent in the unpronounceable, to me anyway, Jizong Jizing. The guy's good, whatever my rudeness in not being able to pronounce his name. And he gave Devlin a hard time. Having said all that, Terry Devlin's still our most improved player of the season. Zach Swanson also wasn't at his best. And I don't think has been at his best for a couple of games now. But that delightful right-footed cross from the left into the Fratton end that resulted in our goal was a gem. Conor Ogilvie missed Regan Poole. Hardly surprising, is it, folks? And no reflection on Jojo Diodia, whom I thought did really well on debut after an understandably nervous beginning. He's got fantastic physical attributes and pace, and his feet aren't too far away from his brain. I would only say, if anything, he needs to dampen his confidence and try not to do too much on the ball when he's still getting his feet under the first team table. I mean, he does look a confident young man, and that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm definitely not knocking that. But he just mustn't get too carried away, mustn't dwell on the ball too much. There was a hint of danger about him at times. But it's terrific to see him. I hope and I'm sure we'll see much more of him. Marlon, our captain, Pack, confesses to be slower, and is slower than he was in his prime, but he has the wonderful attribute of being able to fit into a back four when the manager needs it, as he did against Swansea. But Marlon struggled really in a lot of the game with the power of the Swans midfield. Ebu Adams, beg his pardon, Ebu Adams is wonderful. And you do worry that he tries to do more than he should when the game is going against Pompey. It takes a huge amount of personal responsibility. It's wonderful. It's what's needed. It's so needed by our side, and we need more players who will do the same thing. But it makes life tough for him, physically incredibly demanding. How he keeps going game after game with those performances, I'm really not too sure, but I'm very, very grateful for them. And he's also, of course, labouring under the fear that we all share, and the manager, I'm certain, shares, that he doesn't get one more booking, which would then mean that he'd lose games, and that would be pretty damaging. Milik ALLI played, I'm afraid, as if to answer those supporters wondering how on earth Luton Town had allowed him to come to the South Coast, because he'd been playing so well, but he answered the question, I'm afraid, against Swansea. He had a disappointing outing. He was well marked and snuffed from the game. Colby, for so long our hero, Colby Bishop, looks drained of self-belief. I feel I have to join those now who think he should be rested. But I don't say that with anger and lack of respect, as some so-called fans seem to want to vent on him. I believe he can get back to scoring goals. Obviously he can. But when I see him reacting petulantly to teammates when crosses don't arrive at his feet, in movements when he's chosen to stay behind a marker rather than get across him to reach the ball in. I'm talking about one particular moment I saw at Blackburn, following a cross from Segicic. I think Neil Allen was quoted as saying Colby was presented with a glimpse of a goal. That doesn't work. It doesn't work like that, Neil. He doesn't get presented with a glimpse of goal. He has to. You make your glimpse with movement. And on this particular occasion, Blackburn, he lay behind his marker, and Segicic brought the ball in from the right and couldn't find him. And too often Colby doesn't get across his marker. He was disappointed. He waved his arms. He held his head in his hands. That's not being fair to a teammate, and it makes it look like you're transferring blame, in this case to a more junior member of the team. And Colby, he doesn't do that. I don't recall seeing Colby do that before. It's a measure of his frustration with himself. I feel the time has come perhaps to try Jacob Brown to lead the line. He may well not be able to do it either. But now that he scored his first for Pompey, it's worth challenging him. He certainly didn't flourish wide on the right, where he ended up in the Swansea second half, pushed out there, and his tracking back in the first half, when I think he was expected to do a bit of that sort of work, it wasn't that effective. But he deserves a run. I think he probably deserves a run in the team. So let's move on to Gus Caballero. Is another problem. He's talented, almost exciting, I would say, Sounders. He's got great pace and a trick or two. But Pompey desperately need more end product from the Paraguayan. He could be a hero. He'd like to be a hero. We'd like him to be a hero. But you do feel his teammates don't quite know how to play with him. In fact, I suggest Gus and Terry Devlin are locked in a room together for 4 hours each day at the training ground to work it all out, to get to know one another, to get to know what each other can do and what they want their teammate to do. And then the crosses and goals would flow. This, Sounders, is my hopeful corner after a bad night. I just feel Gus, there's something about him. He's walking a tightrope of success or failure. Perhaps, I guess all players are doing that, but his feels narrower, his tightrope. And he's a long way from home. And I just hope he keeps the faith. Chaplin, Segacic, Swift and Blair all came off the bench into the team. They all improved the team. But not Sounders by enough. I just want to digress to Blair for a moment because I was a bit distressed with him the other day with that equaliser at Blackburn. He's one of our earliest young purchases from a Prem Academy, and it would be such a good investment if he can work out. It's what we want to do, isn't it? Bring young acquisitions in, but it doesn't seem to be working for Blair. He's obviously talented. He has pace. He has trickery. He has resilience. I believe that to the physical demands of the game. He's definitely got the ability to cross more effectively than anyone else we've got playing wide. But every time I see him, his intelligence in defence is questionable. Wingers aren't tacklers, but they have to work hard, position clearly, understand the state of the game, and he's not quite convincing us all that he can do that. And his manager, it may be, and certainly a lot of fans, unfortunately and sadly and annoyingly, are losing patience with the boy. And I've always been hopeful that he could end up an investment and an attacking asset to our club. And I'm not going to quite give up on him yet, but I can see the problems. I can see that he's at a critical time, really, in his Pompey career. That was a bit of a diversion there. I didn't mean to talk about him that length. But anyway, we onwards and upwards. We have 6 days to go, Sounders. A decent break before Derby County. What a pressure game that's become. Because after that, just four home games. Sounders, play up, Pompey.